to partake in. We did get those results back, and so we digested on that for a meeting or two. And really, this is the first step. I don't think by any means this is a huge thing to try and overhaul. We have 28 boards that are under the city's purview. We have some that are outside, like down the Raleigh Alliance and Blue Ridge Corridor, West Raleigh Alliance, and things like that. We don't have this staff support that these boards do as well. So in that, we're trying to create something that makes more sense. What we've heard back from those results were that there was a lack of understanding of what the role is. You know, we didn't see the board's voices in policy and anything like that. So a lot of people felt
initiatives which comprise our committees. So you've got growth and natural resources, you've got safe, vibrant, healthy communities, transportation and transit, and then economic development. And so I kind of went through our list and I assigned in my head and as a theory, can we not put those boards associated with that strategic initiative? That way, when there's questions, I would say for you, I would put you with the Safe, Vibrant, Healthy Community Committee. And how would that look? And when you have questions,
I'm so sorry.
It's muted.
It's fine.
Okay.
I will bear through, but forgive me if I get kind of lost.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat what you were saying when the echo started?
Yeah, I don't remember what that was, but I was saying with the strategic initiative, I think that you guys would belong in my theory with Safe Vibrant. That way, when there are questions and there's like, okay, what are we working on? What could we could always refer back to that strategic initiative instead of listening to every single thing. How can we focus? And that's not final, but that was what I put as a thought of how we align and how we bucket the groups, because it's a lot of boards, it's a lot of things that we're not necessarily, you're going to get inconsistency. I may be here at every meeting or every other meeting. You have some councilors who aren't. So we're trying to define what does that look like. And so we shared some of those ideas in that final meeting. I am interested to hear what your questions are, what your thoughts, because this is really about how do we make sure your voices are uplifted. Stacey, I know that you were a bit frustrated at the end of that meeting, so I want to give you space to share those concerns because I can share mine, but I think it's relevant. I need to know from you guys what is the goal? What are the frustrations that we can now answer? I thought we were going to talk before, so I didn't get to. We didn't get to chat. So I don't know what those concerns might be, but I'd be very interested in hearing what your take on that meeting
was. This is not the meeting for me, so I'll share my thoughts, but this is for the rest of the board. If you weren't there, if you haven't been able to participate in the meetings and watch them. And like you said, my general takeaway was frustration. It was an initial almost disappointment that there felt like a lack of a plan in having started this process, but also not a voice from people who chair boards or are very directly related to them. I was frustrated by discussion about community engagement boards specifically. We talked about problems with forum. We talked about as a board a lot of that openly. As a board, we talked about our commitments to being on this board and what that looks like. We talked a lot about what we felt our purpose was, what we were here to do, what we weren't here to do. Even when we presented, maybe it was our most recent strategic plan. I don't remember if that was when last time I was in front of council. And you brought up forum in that forum as well, and it was addressed there. And then the conversation continued to be specifically with us that we can't meet quorum, we're not committed, we don't know what we're doing. So that's a particular frustration about this board of civil servants and volunteers who have addressed that issue. And it felt like almost half truths. And I'm going to speak about this board specifically. I don't know about other boards and commissions. I think it was an unfair representation to say, we can't meet quorum, but we haven't operated with a full board. Part of the reason we didn't operate with the full board is because we didn't have council appointees that we've been waiting for months. And so those things that are intimate parts of the work that we do, how we do it, and being able to do that misrepresented as inefficiency or incompetence by the board was frustrating. And then again, my brain is of a planner. I'm a logistics person. And so from that meeting, I didn't feel like there had been a plan ahead of creating this task force and sort of upending things before it happened. So it's building a very different bridge before the idea of a road was there. And then for us in particular, upended things in a particular way that we weren't able to pass bylaws amendments that help with things like attendance and quorum, because we couldn't go before council, or we couldn't get to places where we might have had a better quorum because we couldn't prove new members, or we didn't have the membership to vote on policies and things that we had worked on for months to put in place for the betterment long term of the board, because we were now stripped of members and people couldn't those things. So my frustration comes from, I will say specifically from this board, and from actions that felt like were taken specifically because of this board without full knowledge of the workings of the board, and then without maybe attention to what those actions were going to do in the aftermath. So that's in a very 3-month-long nutshell of frustrations with what's been going on without our input. And I'm going to say our as in people who have been intimately involved with the dealings of these boards. But again, this is not about my opinion only. It is for people who are also volunteering their time and have been in limbo to discuss and understand better what's been going on. That's my understanding.
One of the meetings about boards and commissions, there was a presentation or something presented that had, it showed a list of all the boards, how many members, and how many times they had to cancel throughout the year because they couldn't meet quorum. We were like one of the best attended boards for meeting quorum and not having to cancel. So yes, the quorum issue, while we have had problems, we've always met quorum for the most part. So it's surprising to hear that that was like put forward as an issue with this board specifically, when a lot of other boards cancel much more often due to quorum issues.
Well, before this turns into board versus board, do you remember who brought this board up specifically? Because I don't remember that. I brought up, because this is my board. And so when I was here, then I brought that up. Other boards like Planning Commission have also, and which we also noted. And that's our job, is to know when these things aren't happening, when but I also uplifted the frustrations that this board has had. And I brought those to the table as well to say, hey, there's not clear direction. We've talked about in the past that when you guys were formed, it was because it was a vacated. We've had this discussion since I've been on as liaison, because it was supposed to be a supplement for CACs, and you guys dealt with that for 1.5 years of trying to understand what is this, and are we not the replacement for CACs. So there was a whole big struggle where there wasn't guidance from council, and that was a big concern. And so when I walk into there, I say that because that's my experience, and so it's not to pit anyone against each other. It's to say, these are my reflections on what we've seen. But to your point, you're right. A lot of boards, which is why we have this task force. The task force is here to say, it's not just you. It's not just CEB. And those were highlighted, which is why this task force was created, to begin to say, well, then what are the reasons behind why there may not be quorum, which is why we sent out that survey. So that survey was in an effort to say, all right, what are the feelings? What is going on? And we heard that the voices of different boards didn't feel like they were reflected. So it felt like a waste of time. And so that wasn't, again, not every person. We've got 28 boards with a lot of people. That's just a small percentage of those feelings. But moving forward, the task force was created by the mayor to begin to address those issues and say, how do we take the first step to solving those? So no, you're right. There was no plan beforehand because we didn't know what the problem was. I don't know that we've even solved or figured out what the issue is yet. For me, it's that there's no guidance from council to say, hey, this is what I'd love to learn from you. It's what I come in here and I come and share with you guys. These are things we're working on. What can I try and pull the information from you to say, how do we create this? And we just haven't found that sauce yet with most of the boards. I mean, I just came from SUAC and you've got your quasi judicial boards, which are different, like our HDC or planning commission that have a different set of rules that are separate from what the work that you guys do. There's more specific and ongoing. But then I go to SUAC, which is substance use, which is what I go to at 12 today. And so we've really curated over the last 2.5 years, how do we bring people in and then define in our work plan what we are presenting at the end of the year. So that's what we're working on. Is it messy? Yeah, it is. It's really messy. And that's why I'm here walking it with you so that we can figure all these things out. I want us to be able to move and say, this is what would make me feel good in this role. And I want to hear the things that don't make you feel good so that I can say, cool, let's address those so that we can get you into the good category and you're feeling productive and you're feeling heard so that we can move forward. With that partnership is really key. So when we're talking, we can talk here, but having one-on-one conversations, and I've met with different board chairs, and that's not something that we do. So the only time I have with you guys is here. And so I want to make sure we use the best of our time. So when Stacy and when I reached out to her before that task force meeting, there was a bit of confusion before. There was a request for a meeting to have with you guys beforehand, and then staff, it got really confusing with how many people are going to be on it. And so we decided, okay, let's just do this board meeting so we can have this conversation with everyone and say, all right, let's write down all the concerns. So when we go back to that council discussion, we can say, how could we make it better? Not just hard, kind of like CACs. We don't want to just keep spending all the time. We're here to try and make a change to make sure that it works for everyone. So what are your thoughts as a board? Where do you see where the cons, where have we failed you as a board? And then what are the solutions to fix it? What could we have done differently? Yes.
So I don't think I have an answer. And if the task force hasn't found one, I'm sure don't have one either. But I do think there needs to be some thought put into what do we want out of these groups and have some of them pass their utility, and should it be a different format? And full disclosure, I asked to roll off this board. I was informed that I am in limbo. I think you called it, I think I called it purgatory.
Yeah.
Either one. And I came today because I thought this topic was important. I think some of these boards need to be converted into public meetings that are run by staff. They're informational. There's not a judicial purpose, a quasi-judicial. There's nothing, the action level is at a place where I almost think throwing the doors open and going, there's not a membership, everyone's welcome. Because I think, to me, before I was on my first board, I thought the boards were not open to the public. So I didn't, board meetings weren't on my list of things I was even thinking I could go to until I was on a board. Once I got on a board, I realized, oh yeah, people can come, but a lot of people were in the same place I was in, and they don't know you can't come, or they think there's nothing for them to do in that space. I think this board could do things. I also think this board may be more beneficial to the public, being an open door meeting where we're finding out what community engagement's doing, and it's not I need quorum or we're going to take a vote. It's very informational, and and I think other boards may fit into that space as well. I don't know that every group that we put together has something to hand back. And if that's the case, it may be better to really go through and evaluate all of them on that scale and see what really fits and what doesn't, because I could think of a couple that maybe more informational, less board driven. And I think they have moved in that natively. I mean, I think they've moved in the direction of being more, let's inform the folks who are on the board about what's going on, and not in what do we need to hear back from you, or what's the conversation,
Right. And that's a great point. Like there's another board that I'm liaison for was historic cemeteries. And so when I sat down with the historic cemeteries and had this conversation, they were like, we're done. We've done our purpose. They had a charter to bring these cemeteries up to standards, and they did that. And they're like, we're totally fine by not being a board anymore. And so that's something that we did decide in the last meeting. We said, all right, we're going to just fold that into, as a committee, into historic resources. And so there are other decisions being made about other boards that have separate concerns. And I think the struggles that I've witnessed on this board are the retention. So it's not only just about quorum, but it's about people who don't come back, who leave, and you've had a lot of turnover in that. And so I'm like, okay, what are we as council, as staff not providing that makes this not of interest to someone to continue? And it's not everyone, but you've had your chair. Sarah Plov is not here. You've got Cheryl Tung, and you have a lot of people who turned over. So I want to know, why don't they want to come back? Well, is it us? Is it us? Well, what can we do better that would make this more interesting and make this more impactful for people to be part of? And if I'm reading it wrong, tell me that I'm reading it wrong. Be like, no, this is how it is and this is why. But those are, as you look from a council who isn't as intimately involved, and they have those same questions on not just your board, but on multiple ones, that's how we get to this point where we're like, all right, maybe there's something structurally we need to do different.
Was there a conversation with those board chairs about that?
Which board chairs?
And all of them, about if there's retention across the board? Like, was there a conversation, maybe not about that specifically, but about the problems that they're having with their boards or commissions?
Well, part of that was the survey that went out so that people could share. And the other part is with 28 boards, I'm only the liaison for 8 of them. So I can only speak for the ones that I've spoken to. I can't promise you that other chairs have been spoken to. I can't make that promise.
I think that is where I struggle with making decisions or assertions. Like, we have a problem with retention. People like Sarah and Cheryl didn't leave the board of their own volition. Their terms expired. They chose not to come back, which I think is well within their rights. I don't think that should be a mark against us that people have done their.
No one's saying that's a mark against you. I'm just telling you.
I understand, but if they've done their duty and they don't want to return, I think that's okay. We do have an exit survey that people take at the end, and they share, their feedback, good and bad. But again, I think it's a misrepresentation of the board, because we've had maybe 2 people resign that I know of since the beginning of this board that were not stated. They can be for whatever reason, or personal health reasons, or their terms expired. So, and again, part of that retention is cyclical, because if you, for example, if we have 3 to 4 open seats, all of those are council appointed seats that are not filled for months, that stress on the rest of the board to meet quorum and to take up other duties and responsibilities. That is then things that they probably didn't sign up for, but we're asking them to do, which makes their experience less desirable, which means they don't want to come back. So to put it solely on the shoulders of what's wrong in the situation from our standpoint, or councils, I think is unfair. And if those conversations had been had prior to creating this task force based on the assumption of what's wrong with the boards, I think it would have changed what this could look like going forward. And even if it's a survey, I understand that is an important assessment tool. But if there are 28 boards and commissions, to have 3 rounds of conversations with each of those board chairs to discuss those things, I think would have been more appropriate and appreciative of me, because I can tell you exactly what's happening with this board and what our pressure points are. And it's not people not wanting to be here or not understanding the importance of being here. Some of it has been clarity, but that's a whole other conversation. But you have people who did commit to being here and they decided to leave, or people who had health issues that decided they needed to leave. And that's not been represented, which I think, again, is unfair. I can only speak for our board. It may be the same for others, but I don't think that's an accurate representation of what's happened in the past.
What I'll say from my perspective in that is that I come as often as I can, which is almost monthly, and that's not been every single month specifically, but it's been pretty frequent. And you have my number, so I need that feedback as well on an ongoing basis. It can't just be me fishing, going, okay, are you okay? Are you okay? I come here and I present and we talk, and I'm like, hey, I want that back and forth, and I don't always get that. You have my number. If there's anything, I need you to respond to me as well. I mean, we've all got, you have a life with your job, and I've got so many things. If there's something that you feel, I need you to talk. I mean, we talked right afterwards, and I said, hey, let's call me. And then we didn't. So that's a back and forth.
If there wasn't a communication that retention or quorum was an issue directly given to you, then why was that brought up as a point for this board specifically that were issues?
Because that was my experience as I've been sitting in here. I'm like, okay, and I'm watching people go, and then we haven't had the back and forth. So I brought it up as that's just what I'm noting. Not that it's you specific as, oh, this is a bad thing. I'm just bringing up all the notes that I have witnessed personally. So if other board members or other counselors are not going to their meetings and are able to represent, what's your face? The mayor brought up specifically the planning commission, which is also important. They don't have a liaison. So it's just my experience in here that we have not had clarity or conversation to make sure that I understood all of those either. So if we need to make that stronger, that's definitely an avenue that I'm willing to go down. But I give every board chair my number. Hey, let's have a conversation. Let's see where the issues are. And I don't always hear back.
I think part of this too is larger than the city of Raleigh or the boards. I mean, there is a lot of apathy. There is a lot of, nobody's listening. Therefore, why should I participate? I don't want to be involved. And I see that in other places way outside of here as well. And it is none of these things. I mean, we've experienced it in this room, but I don't think this is unique necessarily to us. And I know other groups are modifying their behavior based on the folks that are coming or not, and how they do things. I mean, 2-hour meetings a month is a lot. And that's a lot if you are a old Gen Xer who has been to a lot of meetings and, doesn't really mind meetings. I think anybody under 30 is probably going, can I get it in a 45-second TikTok reel, YouTube short? And we have to accommodate for that too. We have to think about who we're trying to reach, not as this board, but as the city, and what works and how does it work, and not, let's keep this same mold where we're sort of gatekeeping the positions. So, if you kind of know somebody, you can kind of get on a board or a commission. And if you kind of don't, you go in the route and try to, fish your way through. For some folks, an appointment's easy. For some folks, they're hoping they get appointed. I have seen some people treat boards and commissions like, hey, this is, an entitlement, and others treat it as I want to get in and actually do the work. I want to push things forward. This is a tough thing that we're trying to do, not just in this room, but in every room that you've been to today. I don't think there's an easy answer. If there was, I would definitely share it with you. But I don't think there is. And I think it's probably going to be multiple answers based on the board, based on what the board does. Some of these, I think, probably need to be converted to open meetings that are run by staff where folks can get the information they need. We can put it up on YouTube, but folks can watch at their leisure. Others, they probably do need to have some, input for them, and, all of those things. That's a decision I'm glad I don't have to make, because it's gonna be tough, and I think there's gonna be some trial and error. And I don't envy your all's position and having to go through these and go, yeah, this one stays, this one goes, because there's gonna be people upset no matter what you do.
And I'll say the consistency of each. I'm sorry.
I want us to get into like problem solving, but first I feel like we need to identify specifically, if we focus on community engagement board, what are the problems, right? Before we get to the solutions. So we mentioned maybe the structure of our meetings and having to have membership to technically be involved, right? We do have open meetings, but that isn't something that people are often aware of. But what are some other problems that you're experiencing? I know that was a question that you asked. So I want us to first identify, like, this is kind of like, there's a design thinking, I think that's what it's called, where you identify the problem first before you get to the solutions. Because I know Councilmember Jones mentioned, like, what are we not providing? Like, what's missing? Are people not coming back? Other than like health problems and things that are out of our control, but what are the things that are in our control that we can change that are currently like the sticking points or the negative experiences?
I take a different approach than just using problem solving.
Challenge.
I go into an organization, ask 3 questions. What's working? What can be improved? What can we do more of? So that's a positive approach. You say we have a problem.
Yeah.
So it may not be a problem, but the negative term gets you defensive.
Yeah.
So what's working? What needs improvement? What we need to do more of? As an individual that has been involved with this for 10, 15 years, from a resident to a neighborhood organization leader, to a CAC leader and to all the staff task force that have been dealing with this community engagement issues. I've been watching and listening for a long time. This is a new board. I think there's no other board that's been created as new as this one.
Not when that is meeting, yes.
So that's not fair to try to evaluate a new board against old boards. Because the expectations that we were dealing with, looking at our model, looking at our mission statement, is very proactive. So looking at the spectrum that even this citizen engagement department has developed over the years, a spectrum of engagement, the big picture of where we fit in that spectrum. I don't think everybody fully understands that because Taisha and her staff has finally got to the point that we knew they needed to be at where they joined the neighborhood staff and her staff together. We knew that, but nothing we could do. It's not fair of the expectations that this committee was going to take over CACs. It's putting a square peg in a round hole. But give out that expectations, people grab onto it, knowing where I sit, that doesn't work the way this, and it shouldn't be expected to. But there are gaps based on the way it was outlined that this committee is responsible for, that with better leadership and direction, we could be more effective. Because some people are sitting and waiting for direction. I don't sit and wait for direction. Where there's three things I deal with that I can control, I can influence, and I do nothing about. So the things that we can control, we took care of. The things we can influence, we would. But where we're waiting for direction to come, that's not going to come. There's probably more reactive stuff related to what we're charged with that we needed to know we could do. When I first came onto the board, somebody said that you were going to get your direction from city council. You can't do nothing. That's not what I read. These things said I need to evaluate, I need to review, I need to advise, I need to connect. Well, why do I need director for that? Then when you decide how we're going to do those things and start doing them and give the feedback to city council. But the lack of direction and leadership from the council to help these committees has not been effective, at least for us. So it's good you're doing the survey, and maybe you need to look at that big picture for this committee. And for what I've seen them go through for the first several years of this committee is a lot that they've taken on. You know, we already talked about onboarding. We saw onboarding as a problem because when you bring on new members, how are they oriented? We did not determine when city council assigns their individuals, what orientation of expectations do you give them? And is it uniform across all the councils? So then when they come to us, what orientation does staff give? What orientation does this committee give? So the expectations of individuals as members know where their direction and guidance is going and to help them. And then how to work them through to be more effective ways of getting things done instead of waiting for somebody to give us something to do. You know, so a lot of stuff that I don't think is fair, the way that you may have brought it up is the way you may have perceived it. For some reason, it wasn't communicated by us to you as our liaisons on exactly what was going on. So that concerns me. Our communication with you should be that positive. I don't like when people are assuming stuff or saying things that are not fact without getting those relationships together. I've come back and stuck with CAC because I know these relationships since COVID has to be rebuilt. So this direction of trying at this meeting, where we wanted to have a retreat to kind of do this thing and to have it facilitated so that we can be effective and efficient. Because the layout, the topics, and what we want to do so that we can address them and have time to think about it. And we want to have a brainstorming session is different than having a plan session that I put some thought into, that we put some thought into, so we can see where we're at, where we want to go. You know, and so that's where, and it's good that you're doing a review you do, but there's some things that we could still do. You know, so we're on hold. But because I'm working at the lower level with communities, it really doesn't matter because I'm doing what I need to do at my level and I'll do it at this level because it's needed. Residents need this engagement. They need to understand it. They need to trust it. Trust and transparency as he mentioned, still is not bad. But the only way that I know we can show them is by our results. So we need to be results oriented. I ask staff, whenever you come out for transportation, for housing and development, give that specific accomplishment to that area that you're talking to. So they're not just saying, this is what we're going to do, but this is what we've done in your neighborhood. That's positive. I relate to that, not that big picture that I may not see equitable to everybody. So we need to focus more like, this is what we've done, and now what can we help you do? You know, it's just, we're not getting it right there. Some staffs handle it a lot better than others, some don't. I go to all of these meetings that we have for citizen engagement, and the attendance at those meetings vary from 5 people to 50 people. But yet they're involved citizen engagement. What's the problem there? Why are we looking at the same issue probably that deals with boards? Maybe the same attitude. But what is that? Is it because you got to have food to bring people out? Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm hearing some people say we need transportation. So have we addressed that problem? Some groups said if you give us transportation, we'll bring a busload of people to your meeting. You know, so there's lots of things I think that when we're talking about if this is what you're trying to accomplish something today, then we need to be more structured about what we want to do and the approach we want to take. Because I don't see it as a problem. I see it as a challenge. So if we identify the things that are working, what needs improvement, what can we do?
So then let's take that and let's say, what's working on this board?
Identifying the things that are gaps because we're a new board and we have seen turnover of members and ideas and functions. Speaking to something like onboarding, we did see that as a problem. We didn't know what the process was when somebody being interested in being on the board. They would just show up. So we created a whole policy, a whole plan for how we're onboarding, what that looks like, how staff's involved. Now, we haven't been able to vote on that because we couldn't meet because of things like not being able to approve. But we have those things. Creating policies that will fit for a board to function. Those weren't created in the first year. Things that have to do with social media, once we got that going. How we respond to requests that come in from council, that was never clear. So we have a whole document that's 3 pages long that we went through what that looks like for this board beyond us. It's not another thing immediately, but beyond us. So I think identifying where internally we have found them and where we have over and over and over been told that we are falling short and trying to address those things systemically for this board to continue to be productive beyond our time here, I think has been one of the better parts. And some trial and error of being able to be accessible. Like we used to, part of another reason we had problems with quorum at some point was just getting people to the room at the same time because we traveled across each district. So it could take me 35 minutes to get to somewhere. The meeting's already started. We don't have quorum. Doesn't mean I didn't get there. Didn't mean we didn't conduct business. But that was an exercise in us trying to be out in community. So we weren't sitting in a municipal building every day to ask citizens to come find us rather than being out with them. So I think we did trial and error. We have done trial and error of like how we can do what we know to do better. And then what we don't have to build systems around that for it to be sustainable. And then to get feedback on you are not doing this and we want you to do this, but how does that fit within the charter of this board? That is what I've seen in my time.
I'd like to echo the trial and error. I think this group has done a great job of being flexible and trying different things to find citizens to come and join the process. I think what we learned in that process is that is hard. I mean, we went all over the city. We, came back here. I mean, I think there is no fault in being, persistent in looking for new answers, and we have done that well. I think again, and I'll say, I do see this in other places, and part of my full-time job is working with different communities. This is hard. There is a lot of happening out there. There are a lot of people that being bombarded with the news, whether they perceive it as good news, bad news, however they perceive it, they're being bombarded. And that makes something like this a challenge to walk in the door. I think for me as a member, and part of the reason why I'm rolling off is 4 hours a month across 2 meetings when I have baseball, swimming, not myself, but my son. It makes it really challenging because you're making decisions on, do I go to T-ball or do I go to a 2 hour meeting where I hope there'll be a quorum and I hope things will go and I hope we can move things forward, and maybe not. And that's why, I'll say again, thinking about the format for all of these, if this was an open door meeting where folks could come and it's in a place that is accessible, you may get people that are interested in community engagement to show up, and that may be the same for the Parks Board. That may be the same for some of these boards that really the staff is sufficient, and I hope we're a value add to the staff, but I think any group of people that this staff gets is going to be a value add to them. They are sufficient. They can do the work that needs to be done, and same for a lot of these departments that have boards. I don't know that the utility of the board to the staff is great enough to justify it. I do think there's a lot of information that can be shared from the staff to individuals that come that would have value. And especially if we can get those, like most of, I think all the meetings are now, on a platform where anyone can watch them when they have time. That's incredibly valuable because at 9, 10 o'clock at night, I got 2 hours to watch a meeting. I don't always have it during the day. I don't always have 4:30 as always a convenient time. And I am sure that is everybody. I'm sure I'm not unique in the fact that I don't have unlimited free time. So, I'm just offering that as a suggestion. And honestly, I don't think this board has, I'm not leaving this board because this board has problems. I'm leaving this board because I need to reclaim some of my time for other things. I think this board has done a tremendous job throughout I've been there since day one. I mean, I think it's done well in working with each other. I think it's done well with, navigating challenges that are not unique to us, and, trial and error. I mean, all of that. So I wonder if the time has come for the city to go, some of these things, the board design isn't space.
I think Anthony brings up some interesting points, like his reasoning for rolling off the board. These are personal reasons, like his life priorities are shifting, and that's happened for a lot of people. One specific position that I do think that is a tangible action that we could take would be changing the age requirement for the young person on the board, and bringing that up to 28 or 30 years old, because right now it's at 23, and that's just too young. Like our last girl that we had, she was graduating college, interviewing for jobs, her whole life was changing. She did not have time or energy for this. And I think a lot of people age 18 to 23 are in those same shoes. So that's one tangible thing that I think we could change. And back to Anthony's point of reasoning, people's lives are changing. You know what I mean? Like Carmen 2 years ago, yeah, sure, she could do the board. Now she's writing books, she's doing pie, she's, she is doing everything. Her life has, and that's what's happening for a lot of people. So it's not always a bad thing to see people rolling off the board. Like their lives are moving in a different direction, and that's okay. We do need faster appointment and recruitment. Obviously, the last couple of months have been an exceptional case because everybody has the same start date, or, a lot of people have the same start date. We just lost 11 people or something crazy like that. So if we can just bring people on faster in a different way, I don't know what that would look like. We've talked about, switching it to completely staff, or you mentioned switching it to the board doing it. We do need to dig deeper into how we bring people onto the boards. And I don't think that's an issue specific to our board.
Right, because I think specific roles like the youth, that's not us.
Right.
That's staff doing, so there's we only appoint we
Right,
the ones that are specific roles, that's a staff appointed position, and we've stopped everything, so that's not a dig on it, that's, but that's completely valid. again, since you guys are the newest board and we tried something different, maybe it's time to say, it's not working. That's not working. Maybe we need to try something else. And that's not a dig on anyone else. We can say the uncomfortable truths and say, this isn't working without it being that, oh, the board sucks because it's not working. It's not at all what we're saying. It's highlighting okay, there's a concern. And yes, people have 2 year and that's great. They filled it and they don't renew. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, it also is challenging because that turnover, just like on council, from the beginning of this board, you've had 3 different councils. You had the one that established it. You had when I was here, when my first term, and now you've got 2 new. And so you've got different priorities from council. So the reason when we keep going backward and saying, hey, what was the purpose? I have no idea what their purpose was. I have no idea why they started this. I know why I feel they did, but that's not fact. Mine was heaped in emotion about being lost by CAC. So I consistently look at this board as the one that was supposed to replace CACs. It shouldn't be that way, but that's my own personal perspective and how I saw it. And so we all come with those emotions. And now you have people on the board or on council who have not been privy to any of this and are sitting there like, what is going on? And so there's all of these things that we have to play with. We have to acknowledge all of those as realities and still find a way forward. And so go, okay, putting that all aside, what is the work? And you guys are very flexible. You guys do a phenomenal job. I loved going around to all of the different, doing the tour of the city. Did it also aid in some confusion? Was there also confusion on the website when it wasn't posted where we were going to be? Yeah, for me it was. There are months where I'd be messaging my assistant. He's messaging Dale, where are you? Where are you? Because I didn't know where you guys were. So if I don't know where you are, how does anybody else? You know, today I had to tell Jordan where to go because it didn't say where you were. So those are challenges. They're not critique. They're not anger-ridden critiques. They are, how do we fix this? How do we make sure it's clearer so that everyone can get to where they need to be? So those are some great wins. I'd love to hear from the people who haven't shared. Suzanne, what are your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts.
Can we stick with the wins first?
Yes, definitely. I have a lot of thoughts on
Okay,
those as well. I would say being a newer board member, first time board member, I found this board specifically to be very welcoming. And I'm the type of person that if I have a question, I'm going to raise my hand, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to throw it out there. You know, it's like I probably might step in some stuff along the way, but I'm just going to put it out there. And I have been well received in asking those questions and saying, hey, I don't understand this. Can you help give me some context around this? CACs are new to me. Can you quickly get me on board to that? I think that the way that the people that I have been fortunate enough to serve, learn, grow with have been very welcoming and informative, and to create that environment. And I think that that's where the trust begins, is that we are building it with and among ourselves. But I think those are the people who are showing up, how we're showing up in the spaces. So I think that that's a tremendous win. I also think that the organization and the thoughtfulness and the strength, the sheer will of the people who were here before me really was tremendous, because a lot was thrown at y'all, and without structure, without anything. And you're like, yes, we're going to show up. We're going to give it our all. This is what I see as a priority. This is how we're going to move forward. This is where we're going to focus when we aren't getting anything else to chew on. We're going to create our own meal over here. And I'm, coming in and saying, okay, well, what are we eating right now? And I think that the work that others, even that aren't currently serving right now, has been tremendous. And we, in conversation, we bring those contributions up, we acknowledge them, we honor them, and we try to build from that. So I think those are definite wins that create the environment that make me want to keep coming back, even though when your threads are frayed and you're going, do I have time? Do I want to? Oh, another thing. But it's the people around the table that keep me coming back, is because I'm like, I get to go be with them. I get to go have conversations where I feel welcome. So I think that's tremendous. And that in and of itself is why I wanted to join in the first place. I do throughout my time here, I've been scribbling a lot of notes about opportunities and possibilities and yes, from onboarding. And I think there's a lot of thoughtful processes that could be created from council, from new council members, how y'all are onboarded. And those, exactly. And I think, and that's okay, put it out there. It's messy. It's like, we're not onboarded.
It's
A
so
lot of,
messy.
right, and I've heard from people are like, I was elected, I got in and I'm ready to do it and I'm doing it for the right reasons. But having a real understanding of what the city's charter was, our current ordinances, our history, community organizations, historic businesses, neighborhoods, and really having an understanding of what it is as a city that we are doing. Because yes, a city is one thing, but a community is another. And to create and work with community is the goal. That's what we want to continue in our, comprehensive plans, years in advance. What do we want Raleigh to look like? What are we going to retain?
I don't mean to interrupt, but I think you bring a really good point. When we talk about onboarding, to that point, he's not, none of us are. So you have a council who is never oriented together. We have some meetings where, we make decisions stuff, but we don't have this like this where we sit down and make it happen. So when you ask, what is the council's direction and what do we want? I have no idea.
I think that the community engagement board, that's one thing that we could probably tackle, is to work with staff and, the other boards and commissions and the Raleigh Community College. That neighborhood college is a wonderful program that we could modify for new board members, new staff members, and council members. We can shape what we already have into something that's effective to get people up to speed. You have a broad understanding that includes some historical context where we're currently, and then looking at your strategic and comprehensive plans of where it is we're trying to be. And I think if you take one look, just flip through the current strategic plan and the progress reports, and you can see where things get pushed. Well, we need to dig into those things because that's the work. The other stuff is moving and it's going. I think those are tangible things. That's just one thing. I also think that we aren't utilizing and reaching out to a lot of historically marginalized, underserved, under-tapped resources. And we can do that using technology and like translation programs. They have headphones that can translate conversations simultaneously. So all of us are listening and we can have people that English isn't their first language. If housing is a problem, then we need to go to people who are on the streets. They're not at these meetings. Like, what are the issues? We need to talk to those organizations, and they are the keeper of the keys. They know what's going on. They know it's better. I also think that have some notes around how we could potentially tap into and utilize and engage the CACs, and having a CAC member on every board. I know that might be a little radical to throw out there. I haven't thrown that out there, but I've been very curious to this, right?
Those ideas.
Yeah, there's a lot of tangible things. And I think that to give up the baby with the bathwater for us right now, this is the work, and it's messy. It's getting even messier in a time of
and just to be clear, no one's wanting to end community. There's no discussion of that. There's been discussion of merging, which I'm completely against, and we want to do this public hearing, so we can hear back from you. But there's no ending, so I don't want that to be put out there like there's this threat of the city forming, changing to what you guys see. Yes, but there's no ending. I do want to touch base with Nadia.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some clarity or corrections to some comments that have been made.
Thank you.
So CEB meeting location is on the website. Sometimes it's hard to see where it's at. So it's on the right side on the blue square. So sometimes people look and they're like, oh, I don't see an office or a location, but that's where it's at. And then for underrepresented groups, that has been something that like the department in general has had a very high focus in. So with like our community engagement van, with our comprehensive plan, we do offer for our community conversations, we have interpretation. We are going to start doing interpretation with Raleigh Neighborhood College. So those things are all things that are in motion. We also have like our access plan, partnered with a lot of community organizations. We have like a whole partner list of over like 150 community organizations that work with underrepresented groups. So I don't want to say in absolute that like we are not engaging underrepresented groups. So that's what
But
that's
it might
just
be-
I want to
I
mention
think
that
it
like,
might
Speaking
there is
about the community engagement board and us and our meetings, I was, none of what I
Okay.
said had anything to do with
And
the
then to
department
know-
or the office. It was solely
On the
us.
website, because I looked at it.
Oh, no, yes, absolutely.
On the website, it says Raleigh Municipal, at least this morning, did not say 305. So like I had somebody who was here. So he was here thinking we were in council chambers.
If you scroll down further, like past, so like there's like the widget with the details and stuff. And then if you keep scrolling under more information and meetings, it says
and
Suite
then on like the
305.
main page, it says like all meetings for 2025 will be in R&B 305.
Okay, so maybe, because when my assistant reached out, like that, when Jonathan's cut, he's the one who I rely on to get that information, he couldn't get it, and he was. So that's where my experience is coming from, whether there or not, my assistant couldn't find that either. So maybe there's an opportunity for us to make
User
it
error,
clear.
sorry.
Huh?
Well, I
Nothing.
think that's a fair
User
point.
error.
Again, about making assumptions of things not being done, and that's not our board. That is
Yeah.
something that I know you guys do, but again, if that's a problem, as you say, it's a two-way street communication, you could say, hey, I don't see the meetings listed, why are the meetings? To me, I mean specifically, and I can help with that, but I
If
do
there's a
think.
different board page that like is laid out better, maybe we could try to mirror that for
Right.
more uniform information for assistants and staff to get that.
I do think that's a fair, like in real time, those assumptions create a different narrative about, even if it's not us, that create a different narrative for people who are having those problems. So I think it's an awareness of that.
Yeah, and I will say like, we don't create the content, like that's communications. So maybe that's a communications topic that we say, hey, it's hard to find locations with the format that we use. I know that we do, like we've been looking at ways to improve our web pages, but like we give them the information and they format it for us. So some of the stuff, like if it's hard to find, like we don't know unless we're told and then we relay the information. But I think the best thing, especially if you're having issues with finding our meeting locations and we're like, oh, it's on the website, or maybe we send you the information, is just to like let the organization know that we need to improve how formatting and accessibility works overall for the organization and how we structure our web pages. Yeah.
But I found the way here, just looking at what's, because of all the craziness that's going on in the world, it's like I want to be around people who are doing something. Thank you for I showed up, but I just went to the events and it said what was going on today, and it does, the City of Raleigh events page. And I was looking for this talking, so maybe you weren't set this.
Yeah.
And so if I have, I'm sorry, but it gives the date, the time, and location, and it specifically says it's all here, which shows every event. And I guess that's the functionary group you're talking about. You go
Yeah.
to them and they put it here, but it is.
Well, I was on possible, and I know Dale's been, we've heard from Jonathan.
Yeah, I actually put the events on the database.
So I'll work on that with my.
Thank you.
Definitely.
There's one other thing with the new committee, the new board, to understand the role of their staffs. As volunteers coming in and working on things, they can burn themselves out, trying to do a lot of things that they don't know how to request, that staff them support. And I think that's a learning curve for this board. So, because there's a lot, we had some very good people on this board with good technical backgrounds that probably took on some stuff that the average member of the board would not get involved, to that extent. So I think to understand, like, I think council and staff have that figured out. Council already knows what they're gonna go request to staff, what staff's gonna bring back. I don't know if the all boards understand it. That may help them understand, that what is staff's what can request and not have to guess, you know, and that'll help the volunteer work on that project more efficiently and not get burned out. Because I think some of them really, you know, almost everybody's put the time in to, at these subcommittee meetings and things like that to work on the issue. But then after a while, they, you know, it may burn out. So I think that's another area for a new board. I don't know if that's another, I've seen planning commission. I think they understand how to use their staffs the way I see them fit in their meetings. You know, that's a whole one too. So I just want to mention that it's important to be clear.
Thank you. And then we have Dion. Dion, is that, I'm sorry, to say your name right.
Yes, it's Dion.
How do you feel? What have been the wins since you've been on?
I've been on the board since December of last year, and one of the things I appreciated about the board, some things have been said, everybody's been very welcoming and open with sharing information. And so that's been helpful because I've had plenty of questions along the way. Another thing I appreciate is the Community Voices project that is in development. I think that, like some people have said, like having this board, I guess at least in its infancy, I don't know what it will look like moving forward, but taking the approach of filling in gaps related to community engagement, it seems like that has been that level of flexibility is it seems like a reasonable fit, and to move forward with a project like Community Voices. I don't know that I've seen that someplace else within the city of Raleigh. So that things like that, like I know for me, I want to come and do something. And so having like, this is what we're doing, it makes it very easy for me to jump into. And so I understand that the board is new and, you know, we'll figure out some things along the way about what needs to be done. And that's perfectly cool. That's part of it. But even the things that have come up to date, they seem reasonable and like things we can jump into. So those are the things that I've appreciated.
How do you think?
I feel like the positives is that we do work well as a group. Anything I think about every meeting, I've been on a couple boards. I am now on a couple boards. Work full time and have a business, a brick and mortar. So I understand the time aspect, and I can't make every meeting, but I've made a commitment because I joined the board, right, to be here. So I understand that, but I think about Stacey every meeting because I feel like I've asked the same question, I think to you at the first meeting I came and last year of direction. And I think Stacey has done a good job of leading us to meet without a lot of direction. And we meet and we get some things accomplished as a committee. Like you said, we met, I think when I first joined, on the communication, how we communicate. So we have, I feel, a full plan in place for the community members to come or to give input. We just don't have that. And I feel like while we're getting that, some direction from city council or some other sub projects would be helpful, because I am like Dion. I joined to do work and I have so many other things to do that I can carve out the time to come if I feel like that I'm doing something, contributing, right? I'm just gonna be honest. And so I was asked to join the Wake County COC board, which helps the homeless. Like literally went to the first meeting. We planned out what we're gonna do for White Flag when the temperature's up. I mean, like that is how I'm best use my time, because I can see, okay, we're affecting the community. And that's what I would like to do with this board, to see exactly what the community needs, how we can help, and just how we can work with the community. And so my frustration is not seeing that, not seeing the direction from council. And I think it's been kind of my same question. Were we a substitute of CACs? Like what What were we created for? Because when I first joined, that's what I was told. Where you guys are kind of just like a puppet committee created to be here. And I still feel, I asked that question to you directly when I joined and you said no, all the things. And we're still in the same position to me almost 2 years later. And so there's some frustrations there with me as far as, do I want to stay on? The people, yes, we have a great team. Like I said, we get to talk about the city, but actually working in it, I don't see that. That's just kind of.
So focusing in on the board and direction from council, what does that direction look like to you? What directives? Because I've heard two things, and I understand the direction, you need direction from council, but then I've also heard, oh, you give us so much, and then we have too many things to do. We talked to, they threw, I know that when Mary Ann was there, mayor, she tried to throw LGBTQ stuff at you guys, and it was like, wait, what? And that's,
I don't know.
that wasn't you.
The only thing we've had directly given to us was public comment, which is one of the biggest flags I can plant in this board, because we were asked to assess what that looked like, give some recommendations. This board went above and beyond in researching those things, surveys, looking at other municipalities, creating recommendations, taking it a step further to take action and create a video, which we tries to make another video so that it's accessible, palatable. That's the only thing that we've gotten directly from council to give recommendations on. You brought things to us that were updates from council. But even that, we had a discussion about what does that mean for us to do? Like, are we just disseminating information, or is there something actionable for us to do? Through which we created a process on the policy committee for what it looks like when you say, this is what council needs from us, or this is the information we need disseminated. Again, things we haven't been able to vote on because of everything going on and not being able to add new members, but like, those are processes that we've created to address whatever does come that way. We can't be reactive all the time, but we can be proactive about what's brought to us and how we handle that. And we've created process for those things, even if we're not the ones coming to you saying, this is what you need to do. It's like, this is how we're going to handle what comes to us, so that we can maybe do more things. When those things come, we can say, okay, we got a request about the noise ordinance, and Councilmember Jones wants that to be something that the public hears about, and they're having a meeting. We have the process for it. If it's this communication, this is what we do. There are 8 steps to it, and we can send it out. Or if it's something like public comment, this is a bigger issue. Here are the steps that we've already outlined to take care of that as a board, and we can do it that way. So I don't feel like we've gotten anything besides the public comment specifically, and then during meetings, recommending or requests for me to do extra things. And it's not that we wouldn't have done those things, but we didn't have a process of how to handle them. And then we created the process, and then things stopped. So I think we look for not just direction, what you want us to do, but what we're here for in service to council. And it's a double-sided question for us to ask you, and then you to ask us. It's like the Spider-Man beam where we're all pointing at each other. But if we felt like we were created to do one thing, which is our charter, which I think is something we're trying to follow with the Community Voices project, and then other things that we've created in place. But we're seen as not efficient by council, or not having a clear identity or direction of what we're doing. Then it comes back to, what do you define as clear direction of what we're doing, so that we can refine what we're doing to fit that. So I think it does come back to the age-old question of like, are we a puppet organization that was here to replace CACs? Because that, I mean, it's a joke, but that's been said to people to their faces. So like, that's not my place to divulge that.
There are people under the bus.
Yeah, I'm not gonna throw anybody. Those
So
are
I can say
conversations
that when
we
this was
had.
created in 2020, that is how it felt. Because I was gonna thought this is what it felt like at the moment. When I got onto council, that's not what I want. What I personally, and being the liaison, want you guys to be. I don't want you to be this puppet organization for CAC, because they're their own organizations. We have that whole back and forth. When we center it on your work plan, this work plan that we have right now, tell me the things that you guys are most proud of, and tell me the things that you need further guidance on. Because with the 28 boards, I can say I think I'm the only, I have 8 different boards. And so I'm not as always like in tune with everybody's specific work plans. If we could focus on your current work plan that you guys created, where could we have done better in making sure that you're.
Anybody want to go to the 6 o'clock? Council.
The affairs.
So I'm leaving soon and it's just been so good hearing everyone here talk, but I do have a question because I've seen that community engagement is, so much and it seems to be really integrating citizens, understanding zoning ordinances in ways. I'm not sure about hearing that right, but as someone who's worried about what's happening on the national front, like I think everybody is that they're coming into cities. I don't know what board or who is going to be helping people when they have questions about police, someone else on the street, these sort of things. And the thing is, I don't know. That doesn't sound like it's about what this group would do, but when I hear the words, do what?
Communication has developed something on the web now. New residents coming in, I'm gonna need that again.
Okay,
And there's contact, so that's something, what you're addressing, that they're looking at and have someone to.
for new people coming in, does it have anything I'm worried about, troops coming into our city, for instance?
I mean, you
This
can
is
look
what
at
I'm
it,
concerned about.
and those kind of things, you can always give us feedback, we can get feedback to the communication staff about what you see.
So anything that I think, who do I call to find out if this person on my street is police or some other entity? I can call you or
I think
communications of the
it's going to
city.
be, they're trying to get a one-stop shopping, is that right?
That's Raleigh.
Yeah, where you can go with that kind of question and they can help directly.
Nice and really decent.
Ask Raleigh. Yeah,
It's not mine.
not eyes. I think it might be, I just Googled it. It says Ask Raleigh is gonna be like a new platform or portal where you can ask questions, you can submit complaints. It's replacing Click It and Fix It. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
See Click Fix. But Ask Raleigh, through our customer manager or customer experience manager, like she's been like leading that work. And Karen Ray, she's come a couple times. So they're
Be the person to, that can connect you with Karen Ray. She's gonna be our, person that can connect you exactly where you need the questions you ask, she can connect you with the right person. But what we need to get you that information, so for sure. And I think that this is a perfect
it does
example.
look like it's live.
Our meetings are always open, and so if people come to us with something that's like not necessarily under our purview or the department's purview, we have a process in play or like a, what is it, like a framework in place that we will respond to you and get you in touch with the correct person, not necessarily you, but anyone that comes. So if they were to come and be like, I'm worried about this, we'll be like, okay, we don't do that, but we're gonna find out who does and we're gonna connect you with them. So that's, yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah. Do we have your contact information so that we can do that?
Is there a phone number on
There's a
the?
sheet.
Yeah.
Email.
If you want, you don't have to.
Awesome. So I think that this is one of those check-in moments. Again, we're created 5 years ago before a lot of us were even on council, so I can't answer the age-old question of what was. All I can say is what we're gonna build moving forward. And so we took this pause and said, all right, let's really delve into what are the purposes. And we spent 3 meetings doing that. It's not done. It's a huge conversation. I cannot say to you that in 3 meetings, we have a clear understanding of where we want to go. We don't. But what we did recognize that we weren't hearing, and not every counselor is going to come to every meeting and make sure they're having this back and forth to uplift. So I think that once that date becomes available of whenever that public hearing is, having some representatives from every board would be nice to be able to share that information so that all of council can hear it instead of, just me and then just the committee that's on the task force. I don't think it doesn't benefit any of us to think in adversarial terms, because I don't think anybody from city staff, from city council, from the board is wanting this to be oh, I don't like, it's not what it is. There's a whole bunch of confusion that was laid out on any new board that is happening. You have to become what we want to see. And so there's gonna be two things. It's gonna be what does council want? And it's a valid question, but we haven't sat in a room. I can tell you what I want to have. But that doesn't mean that that's gonna be represented in all council. So that's something that we have to work on. And then what do you want to be? So I think that there's two visions that we have to merge into. Yes.
Well, see, we're talking about community engagement. I don't hear where we're going back to the community, and say, what do you expect from the board? That's missing. So if we're gonna talk about community engagement, very valuable. So how does that impact what you want or what you wanna do compared to what I'm gonna receive from that?
Is that something that you guys can take on and ask? What is that?
Use board
So we
for that.
created a survey to use internally to ask what we are doing, what we think we should do. That was the self-assessment survey. That was the first step. The second step was for that to go to, I think we talked about this. Committee, go out to council and then to the public. To inform. We created that survey. That was the first step. I think you answered that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, I don't see it's mentioned.
Oh, from council.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't, where's the community engagement? It's a big, no, because this is just the board. This is the board. I'm talking about the residents.
So what do residents want to see out of community engagement?
What do they want to see out of boards?
Out of boards?
Yeah, that's what you're studying the board, right? Not just this one. So even if I
What
do,
does that mean to you? Because we had 3 public meetings in now, well, it wasn't back and forth at that point. It wasn't a back and forth discussion. We're doing public hearing. What does that mean beyond that for you?
how many people were at the public meeting? Not the handful of 10 people. See what I'm saying? So we're not reaching the people. Just because you have a meeting, 8 people come. And even if it's like, we understand we have to reach people in multiple ways. So that depending on just going to a website, I'm still not reaching the people that reach because of different generational ways to communicate.
So give me some different ideas. We have the public meeting, which is accessible both virtually and in person. What else is the expectation of council to do to get people there?
You know, when you ask me a question like that off the cuff, I don't like the answer to do it off the cuff. But one of those things would have been a good activity of CACs because they're at the resident level to bring that up with the people at that level, right? That would have been one way to get you some feedback. See what I mean? So we have some local ways to do that we keep skipping, that we're not fully utilizing. So I'm trying to make sure that when we get these results, people don't say, I didn't know, I didn't have any input into that. That's not what I wanted. This is what you told me I'm gonna get. Now, if that's the way you want to do it, okay, fine, but I'll keep talking about community engagement. I'm just trying to see what based on what you just said.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. Please also remember that there are 28 different boards that we're trying to do. It's not just community engagement. So that's why we do the public meetings. And you're right. You're 100% correct. And that's true in so many different aspects. I can't get, just like you guys have experienced, you can't get all the people to get, if my quota is going to be 50 people. And I get that. Metrics, I'm all about metrics. But I can't get that in a normal community engagement meeting that's just for a thing. So what is the expectation? Because we put it out there and it's available virtually, it's available recorded, people can see it. So I push back on the idea that we're not trying, we are. Is it netting the results? No, but I can't name any other organization that does that.
I didn't mean to say you weren't trying. And we should have learned a lot from Coke and how we have pivoted to reach people at different levels. And we don't, and I know it's late because some of the different departments and city groups learn from that and start reaching and being able to reach people. That structure should be there for us to tap into right now, to not be able to worry about reinventing the wheel. So there's a structure on how to reach different people different ways. Where is it? Who has that? You know?
Yeah, CACs are one piece of the puzzle,
That's
but
what-
they cannot be the only piece because there are people like me who are terrified of people that serve on CACs because of their the way that they've treated people. You know, the doxing, the cyberbullying, like it's not a safe space for all of the community. And so like, that can't be the only way that we're reaching people. And one way that maybe we have this contract with Portico, we've had to put the project on hold because of everything that's going on. Maybe that could be an outlet, you know, something, an avenue that we go down where we hone in the questions more to say, what do you want to see out of boards, or what do you want to see out of this board specifically, or, you know, to get specific with it.
So jumping back a little bit, not to take anything away from anything that was discussed, you asked a question about what would we like from the council? And, you know, hindsight being what hindsight is, I think if we were to have a clear designation of the type of board we are, because I think you hit on it exactly. Are we a working board or are we advisory? And I think we tried to be in a lot of things. And I think it's really unfortunate we tried to be a lot of things because we had this wonderful Portico project. We also, you know, were giving advice on this. You know, if there had been you guys are advisory, we don't need a work plan. We need you to come together and the topic du jour will be there. And you guys have a lively discussion on it and maybe kick out 1-2 things that you would recommend. Go home, come back next month. We may have been more successful from day one because I think the people that were in the room from day one, and even now, are very capable of doing that. This conversation shows that. But you throw in these multiple layers of, well, let's do this, let's do that. Well, now we're part-time staff. And it does wear people down. And I think it has been a additional burden. And it's not that I don't really like this Portico project, I think it's going to be successful. But I think it may have been a barrier to other bigger, better discussions we could have had. And if we were designated from day one as an advisory board, I think we would have known really what the direction was and what we're doing. I think when the work plan got involved, we went, well, we got to do something. And we were all the type of people sitting in the room, like, well, of course we're going to do something. Let's do something. But I don't know that the something.
What I'm hearing, and I want to be sure to reiterate that back to you properly.
Yes.
Is that because there wasn't a decision, if you're advisory, then we fell into the traditional work planning bit. But if the topic had been, okay, every month we're just going to have a different topic. Let's say it is noise ordinance, and now we're going to talk about that. And we're going to say all the things we have to say, and then report that. You know, have those minutes available for city council to review. Now you can just look at the topics and go through everything we've discussed, and hear the people who've been in, and without the I don't want to say burden, it's the word is burden, but without that, the constraints of what a work plan.
Yeah, no, and I think that's no, you're absolutely right, and I think that would have, you know, and I think that may be true for other boards as well. You know, just your job here is not to do something; it's to bring your experience, your background, and if you look at how this board was structured, that was the design. I mean, you know, we had people from every different background, and I think the board composition has been great, and I think the discussions have been great. I don't know that, you know, we did ourselves any favors with the work plan. And maybe the better thing to, you know, and again, I don't have a time machine, nobody does, but, you know, if I could go back in time, being able to go, you know, hey, maybe everybody's going to get an Amber. But, you know, I think looking at this and going, you know, your advisory, council may throw you a topic, staff may throw you a topic. Don't focus on trying to create something. Focus on the discussion and focus on, you know, how perfect world. How would we solve this problem of reaching out to more people? Well, let's get some ideas. Let's get them on paper. Let's throw against the wall, see what sticks, and then let it be in staff's hands to implement what they think would work and what they think, you know, was maybe just a really good exercise in communication.
Right. And with these different boards, I'm also on stormwater advisory, and that's a completely different setup than this. And it's very, very staff driven, and it's going through this. It's all in. They have all their staff there as well. So every board is going to be different, and they're going to have different expectations.
And they do a good job with all the rain we just had. I mean, honestly, like, you know, we didn't have as many problems in Raleigh as I think we could have.
And I don't mean that to derail the conversation.
Yeah, no, but yeah.
What I'm saying here is that it's okay for CEB to be different than stormwater. It's okay for it to be different than substance use, which has a much more structured. If this is different, that's what I want to learn from you. If that is what you guys want to have the leeway to do so that it's more conversation driven, that's the kind of information that I'm like, I don't think anyone on council is going to be opposed to that. And instead of it being work plan driven, being conversation, maybe topic driven, how does, not that we're making any decisions right now, but how does that feel to you guys in your work? Does that feel more comfortable? Does that feel like more of what you want to do?
That's where I see this board be very successful. And, you know, and again, as soon as you appoint somebody, I'm out. But I think based on what I've seen and based on the, you know, the activity that's happened, the work plan has always been more of a distraction from the good, genuine, heartfelt conversations that happen in this space that I think are beneficial, if nothing more than the people who come here and are involved in other things in their communities.
I'm sorry,
My thoughts is, I've been with this board, I think, around about 3 years. And I see it like transfer from, when we was in the community, it seems like we was getting more community people to come to our meetings. But then I understand when we having it on different sides of town, it's hard to get it over. And then the people that we're trying to reach, I think it's like, Anthony said, it's not necessarily the people that's, well, in my experience, my friends and everything, and I'm almost 40, so they don't really know that this meeting's going on, you know, so it's like they don't even know that they have an option to attend the meeting, where it's at, where even to look at to find out if it is a meeting, you know, so, but the plus things that I have seen are it's like, we have set an agenda, stuck with it, and it's just like, I'm a business owner, so it's like when you first start a business, you just like got ideas of what to do, how to do it, what you think you need, what you think you don't need, and stuff like that. So I understand the concept of we having to put it together and then watch it grow. And then when you're dealing with a lot of different perspectives, then it takes even longer. And then when we meeting, I feel like the timing is, it is kind of conflicting. 4:30 is kind of like prime hour for a lot of different things, you know. So I do feel like maybe it could be more sociable. But then again, you know, it's sociable. There's so many things out there that's social. How are they gonna attend this or attend that? So I feel it's a good thing, definitely for the community. It's just gonna take some more stabilization, I guess.
And I'm not sure, because I know you left for just a second, but we were talking about the work plan and how sometimes for some people that may have felt that we were working with the work plan, whereas we could be more topic driven and talk about, you know, like a topic, maybe noise ordinance, and just say how do you feel about it, and then kind of pass that along to staff to say, okay, maybe you guys can work on that, ideas. How do you feel about that?
I feel that too, and once again, it's just like creating a bigger atmosphere for the community. Like, you know, we voices alone, but then again, who are we speaking to and who's hearing it, you know? So I do feel like those topics need to be addressed as well as more other topics, but it's kind of like it's getting to the people or the people getting to us, you know?
Right. And then the hiccups that I just want to address, that I know Dr. Lane, we were just talking about how council is outreaching to the community. What I want to level set and remind everyone is that this is a part-time council who meets twice a month. So if the expectation is for us to get 100 people, how on earth do we do that when we all have other jobs as well? So this is where that partnership comes in, to where we say, all right, you're right, we need more people. But we have seen that council is not able to do that. And so instead of reminding us how much we're not doing, how do we support that? Because that's what I see as the purpose of having the board, to be like, okay, we're here to help you with X, Y, Z, whatever board that is. And so you're never going to hear me say that, oh, we do a fantastic council job doing that. But I mean, that's part of the reason my level of community engagement is why I don't stick around in this, because I have my own community engagement meeting right afterwards. So it's not that we don't, it's just that I can't get to
I think we're saying, don't take it the wrong way. For example, the one assignment we had, and probably had, from what we understand, a successful survey results for the number of people. Because we multiplied our contacts of sending that out through the different organizations. So when you understand the spectrum of community engagement that's being developed and how each of them fit in and not separate them out, but how to utilize them. So there's nonprofits in there, there's CACs, there's all, whatever other organizations in there, there's registered neighborhoods. How do you, coordinate that so you can get the best response and the best information out? We keep forgetting to utilize that. This spectrum is what we're talking about developing, but we're not using it. We have to use, so when you come to, even as this board, we did very good because we enhanced our numbers by the contact list of 500 or 5,000 people that I have on my CAC to send that out. If I get 10 or 50 out of that, that adds to whatever. So that's all I'm talking about. So we have to further understand how to utilize these processes that we've set up, but have not connected with some people. We
Okay,
should be automatically be able to go to that and get the same results every time.
sure. So if we're debriefing just on this task force, let's just say this community or the board task force. We have met in April, May, June, so those are those three. How could we have done a better job to tap into your network? Because they were public meetings. We've talked about it. I know that you were able to attend the last one. So how could we streamline that better to where when we started it back in April, we could say, hey, we need you to let everyone in your network know about that. How would that better have been
You
communicated?
just said that. So to me, it was kind of set up in secret. I kind of heard about it. You didn't know what you were going to do. And so I asked one of our CAC, I said, I think you need to go to that meeting and listen to what's going on. The invitation, the way it was set up was not clear. So who was invited, who was going to be impacted. So now all of a sudden we're to the point that it's more open and going to be more impacted. So we need a statement from y'all that you explains what your purpose and what you want to do, so we can help distribute that. So be uniform with all of us. So that's my comments. That's the way I do things. So we all heard different things here. And if I write up something and she writes up something, it may be a little different. But if we have one thing that's standard so that everybody gets that same word out for y'all, then that's what we want to do.
I also think some things have more appeal than others. I don't
Yeah,
think
right.
I don't think a task force on boards and commissions has the appeal that, hey, look, this is, and I saw some of the emails that went out, the council's going to take away your time to speak at, community engagement. That got people to the survey.
Yeah.
So I think, you hear board and commission task force, you go, well, they're solving some problems, getting some stuff done. I think I watched about half of one on YouTube and went, seems reasonable, and went about my business. And I don't feel terribly different still, because I think this is why you elect a council. This is why you have folks, I have to put some faith in the process and the people involved. And I have to manage my time, and I think others do as well, with, what is the biggest and loudest priority? What do I have to do? And honestly, I think I have a reasonable amount of faith that good decisions are going to be made. And part of that was looking at who was sitting around the table, who was involved, and going, yeah, okay, well, they're not going to do anything that, I'm going to find so egregious that I'm going to be down there, screaming for my 2 minutes. It's just, that's kind of how I think, some of these things get approached.
It's such an interesting point, because it's something that we struggle with on council, as to what is that level? How much is it? What is a council decision, as opposed to what and how much community engagement does every level and every decision make? And that's a hard balance too, because as a task force, and I think we all had different ideas of what that looked like going into it. We're all thinking, okay, it's going to be a conversation. And then it led to these recommendations that we were like, whoa, we're not ready to make that. And so to your point, that level of trust, which totally understand when it's not there, because we haven't had those totally get that. And that feedback is necessary. But there are going to be those times where council's going to make the decision to set the priority to now get information. I'm not saying that this is that moment. I'm just saying there are going to be those times where we're like, actually, this is a council decision. And then once we have cleared it up and made all of this, then we will roll it out and get some feedback from the stakeholders who are mostly involved. Because a lot of people, to your point, when I say, oh, boards and commissions, if they're not part of that, they're like, what? I don't know what that is. Okay. And so our target was not the broader audience to get everyone's feedback who is not involved in boards and commissions. It was to get everyone who is currently involved, making sure we heard their concerns because they are the active participants. So I think that might be why we didn't have a conversation, so I can't say that, but I would think that maybe that would be why we focus mainly on those who are already involved.
But see, that's,
Survey the only means of reaching out.
Yes.
but see, that's a statement you just made that would be clear now for all of us.
But
We may
remember,
not-
we're not at the end of this looking back. I'm
Yeah.
right in the middle of it. So there's gonna be things that I say that I'm like, okay, that makes sense now because we're just locking in. We have to be in a level of trust with each other where I can be comfortable saying that to you and going, oh, that's a great point. Actually, I'm gonna go and fix that. And it's not perfect. My words are not always gonna be, council is not always gonna make the right decision. We're not gonna start things off on the right foot every time. And maybe this is one of those times, but I hope that we can build the trust to where we can say, all right, let me tell you where we can do better moving forward. Because I can't keep looking backwards. I can't keep trying to fix things that we messed up on 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
I think the overall trust level is, inversely proportional to the amount of engagement you receive. If people are upset, torches and pitchforks are easy.
Yeah.
When you're relatively happy and you're relatively, and I'll say, I haven't watched all three of those meetings that are on YouTube. I watched enough of one to kind of get a sense of it and went, yeah, they got this. And, part of that is I'm not expecting gotchas from this council. I'm not expecting, and there have been times where I'm going to watch everything that's said because I feel like if you don't, you're going to get thrown a curveball. And, and I don't think I'm alone in that.
Right, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to backtrack a little bit to when you were talking about like being task-based and you mentioned the noise ordinance. And like, I still feel like I'm fairly new to the board because, there's like the people that started in 2022 and then there's those of us that didn't. And so I still feel like I'm fairly new, even though it's been 14, 15 months. In a dream world of mine, not necessarily, I don't speak for the whole board. I think we all know that. In my dream world, with Red Hat, with the noise ordinance, with things like that come to you guys, either from staff or from the public, and you're like, we need community engagement on this. I think that is an opportunity to get the staff, not necessarily community engagement staff, but the staff that is relevant to that issue to come to the board, present it to us. We have an open meeting. Anybody in the community can come and give public comment at that as well. And then, we would summarize our thoughts, give feedback, give you feedback, you bring that feedback to council, and that would go into it. I feel that would feel purpose-driven for me personally. I also, I don't want to drop our work with Portico. We've made such good progress and, we're doing really well. So obviously we can pivot what our questions might be as a result of this. That's definitely an option. But I think, being task-based, work-based, having more presentations from other staff and departments that need community engagement opportunities might be a positive thing for the board and maybe for the community. Again, this is just my opinion. Y'all don't have to agree.
I love it. I want to ask staff in that regard, if there's something like a Red Hat, because we'll use your example right there, which I know you did, and we reached out to Heritage Park. Is that something that you would need staff direction or council direction to say, hey, I'd like you to do this to the community? Is that how we would get that to you?
Sure. Yeah, because I think right now, we do have a process. Internally, we have a support request form and departments can come to us for consultation and, getting help with engagement plans and thinking through XYZ problems or how to access certain demographics and things like that. So it's something that we already do. And we've kind of been introducing that with some projects, comprehensive plan, they come and talk to you guys, or even with Karen Ray, opportunities that I see as a staff for us to involve community engagement board. But if if you guys are saying, you know, more structure and kind of like expectations, like, hey, and depending on where you fall on the spectrum, if it's empower or if it's collaborate, CEB gets involved, and it's a, you know, a directive, or maybe every month there's like 30 minutes that's saved for one of the projects we're currently working on to like get community feedback or CEB involvement. And I mean, I feel like we always are willing to like make adjustments and include you all, because yes, you represent the community, and yes, you have great assets and networks and things that often we're not able to, you know, connect with because of the connections that you guys have and the communities that you're involved in. So, I mean, ultimately, I want us to, like, I know we've all mentioned like strengths, right? And the great things, like you guys are obviously a great board, work well together, creating an inclusive, welcoming community. Yes, we've had challenges. I think that's part of community engagement too. Like sometimes with structure, like that's not community engagement. You give them all the answers, right? So sometimes building the boat as you go is part of community engagement because you guys help us build it, right? And I think with us becoming a department, having more staff to support, we have all these programs now with like Raleigh Neighborhood College, and we're looking at BCCs and, you know, all these other things that we're involved with, like Citizen Leadership Academy. There's a lot of opportunities for us to like align everything that we already have going on to like work better and more efficiently. So I think just being given that permission to like restructure things and obviously involve community feedback to better utilize what we already have going on, and to also have your buy-in and reflect your decision and feedback in the work that we do, so that we're a part of this together and we're not necessarily just like making decisions for residents or board members, but you guys are part of the process. Does that make sense?
How do you guys feel? If that's a direction moving forward, you know, as we build that next level of the communication, that is more tact. That's what I'm gathering from what we're talking about. You know, we want to feel kind of what was reflected in the survey, which was we don't feel our voices in policy. We don't feel seen in the work that council does. And how we can, I don't know what that is at this moment, how we can strengthen that, but I think we can build on that if that's somewhere you guys are interested in starting.
And I think that's like the start, right? Because you guys also mentioned like having clarity in your role, right? You mentioned improved partnership with council, right? And like more regular check-ins. I think you mentioned that, and Stacy and some of the folks like evaluating the structure, open meetings, accessibility and inclusion, strength-based framing, Dr. Lane. So like there's a lot of things, and I think that's part of the partnership and building that trust. And so from what I'm hearing from you guys, it's like y'all want council to be more involved and to actually honor the recommendations and decisions that you guys help make for the city. So like when we're talking about public comment and you put in all the work and then you give the recommendation, it's not used and something is completely erased, and all that time that you dedicated volunteering, you know, to do this work is not acknowledged or even utilized, that's where the bridges are being burned. In my opinion, as a staff member, I just want to mention that, right? And that's the sticky point. And I think it's definitely going to be important for, yes, council says you value community engagement, but like actions need that too. And I think staff, I can only speak for myself, but maybe Dale feels the same. Like we're trying our best to be as inclusive and advocate and say, hey, let's do this. This is what we heard. Here are the results from XYZ engagement effort. And it isn't always listened to. And sometimes the decisions are made prior to us even starting with the work. And really it's just like a checkbox kind of thing. And we don't want to do that. And that's not how I function as an individual with my integrity. So I just think more of a commitment and actual actions to illustrate that, like, yes, we value this and this is how.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that there's
Sorry.
no. I think it's great. I think the only way we get to change is just being direct and just getting over the uncomfortable moments, because there's going to be more. There's gonna be plenty more where I'm like, ooh, that's uncomfortable. I think moving forward, a regular check-in with you and I as being leadership needs to be set forward so that we are checking in outside of this meeting, especially since I can't always be here the entire time because I have my community meeting. So a lot of the stuff with Cortico, with other things, I miss because I'm not here. But if I have that regular check-in, if you can help us set that up, then I'm being able to learn what's going on when I'm not in the room. Because that's not, we currently don't have that set up. So that part of it to lend to exactly what you're saying isn't happening. I will also say that remember, even when something's designated to you, like public comments, and you guys do that, when it comes back, it still needs to buy-in by the 5 of us. And that doesn't mean that that's going to happen. It can be given to you to do. And then when it comes back, council could go, no, that's not what we were looking for. To your point, that wasn't even a discussion. So that I want to acknowledge that didn't happen either. And there were many issues as to why that didn't happen at the time. But not every piece of work that you guys come through to bring to council is always going to be unanimously supported. That doesn't mean you weren't heard, not agreed with. In the majority of council are two different things. So I just want to level set, make sure we understand that. I still want you to bring all those things, knowing that not everything is going to come all the way through. But we as council need to do a better job of making sure that your voice is reflected and acknowledged is what I'm hearing. How do we make sure? I know with CACs, because I'm working with them as an their report, I'm trying to make it a big point during my time to acknowledge that so I can do that much better with you guys. We have said, I want to be able to do check-ins with all of our boards, but because not every counselor does it, they're not interested in doing that. Meaning at the table, so everyone knows the work that CED is doing, or everyone knows what substance use is doing. Because we have 28 boards, we don't have the time in our schedule to be able to every 2 weeks or even once a month acknowledge every board that we work with. So I don't know that that's going to be reflective. I don't want you to be expecting that to be on council and not see it and feel deflated. But I think in these meetings where we're here, if there's something that we're working on together and you're like, Christina, I really want to see that. I want the city to know about it. I am more than happy to be like, let's do it. Let's make sure the whole city knows that I can high five the community engagement board for the work they're doing. But we can do a better job moving forward on that ongoing communication, I think.
I just want to highlight 2 things, and I know we have 7 minutes left. One, I hear this about check-ins, and I know that it has become recent. It's more regular request, which is fine. I do want to acknowledge that maybe 3 months ago or 4, the board in a meeting came up with a framework to give you a synopsis after every board meeting with the top 3 things we want the world to know. So this is not, again, I think this stems from the same assumptions about what's happening in the room when you're not here that are different than what's happening on the ground. So that's another thing that we talked about in the policy committee. Once we had a secretary in place to say who could be able to give that synopsis, a snapshot of what's going on. So I am protective of this board's integrity because I've seen it be maintained over several years, and I'm protective of the work that they do. And I don't want it misrepresented. And I hear the feedback about like what we want from council and not being misheard and those things. But I also think, again, it's important of that first question of what do you want from us? Because we can give recommendations. It's okay if they're not heard, but beyond lip service of do engagement for us, what is it that you want from us? We can say we want work, but if you don't want work that produces what your ultimate end goal is for what you need from us as a support, as a board of commission, then it's nebulous conversation.
What is the mission statement?
We created a mission statement of our own, and then there's the charter for what the board was created for. So the board's mission statement, community engagement board, mission of the community engagement board is to nurture a citywide approach to community engagement that promotes radical inclusion through trust, transparency, and mutual respect. The sort of generic definition of the board says the community engagement board will help develop, evaluate, and implement the city of Raleigh's community engagement efforts. And then there are 5 different responsibilities: reviewing policy, elevating voices, advising and assisting the city in connection and development of community engagement strategies, assisting with public outreach to community members and convening stakeholders to promote opportunities for engagement.
And so that's what you would like council to clarify further.
even if that's not what you want anymore, as you said, there's different council members, it's a different thing, it's a different mayor. What is it that you want from us? Because it's almost to the opposite of Anthony's point. We've used the work plan to say we don't have work to do. Let's create something that we think is within the scope and the value of what we want to do as voices for the community. So the work plan is a subset of something like that that says this is actionable work through Portico for us to go out and ask people about what actually is happening in their communities, if that's not something that we're being directed to do. And so I think it's just what is it that at this point in time for where the city is going, if it's based on strategic plan, based on what your priorities are, based on what the vibe of the community is, apathy or fear or mistrust or whatever it is. What is it that community engagement means to the city of Raleigh at this point in time? And what does that mean for what this board does to support city council in addressing those issues of community engagement? Because otherwise we're always going to be inadequate. We're never going to meet what you think we're supposed to be doing because we're doing what we hear we should be doing by all of this. And it can be something completely different from what the vision or the support that you need is. That's my interpretation of like where we're at this point.
A good summary. We're very flexible. That's a good summary, but we're also.
Right. And I think we've had this conversation, I think Dale and maybe Nadia and I at some point of like the work that we've been able to do as a young board to create some processes that could be used to other boards we thought was important. We thought we were doing a good job to say, well, this is what we found, this we're having a problem with attendance. Let's change what our bylaws say so that we can be able to accommodate people's schedules and things like that more. Like I think we've done a good job of not being a typical board or commission and trying to create something that is equitable but also long-standing. Something that's sustainable.
Okay, so I will work on that, on this, the notes that you have for, that you mentioned bringing up for the meetings that I've not emailed. Do those live somewhere? Has that been started?
We didn't get to start it because it was supposed to be voted on and then we weren't able to have that meeting because maybe I wasn't there. We weren't able to have that meeting and then there was supposed to be 4 items to vote on at the retreat and we didn't have the retreat because issue with raising membership and how that was going to work out because technically we have 5 members now. I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm also in purgatory. And so again, the ramifications of making those actions without knowing what boards on a local level we're doing is bigger than just we're upset that you're making changes. You stop the business and doing things that you're saying are problems that we are resolving. And so that's where I think all of that, and to answer your question. To answer your question, all of that lives in our, either in our minutes or in our email that we've created, all of those drafts or documents.
So whatever happens with the board, I think that whatever that communication looks like, whether it's through secretary position or it's an ongoing conversation, that what we're missing is the feedback, as I came here all the time, of all the work that is being done, and that's not just going backwards. That's not been, we have not had the communication set up to where I can learn about all those things. So I just see what I see here, and I can only experience my experience here. So we can definitely make that better. I think those ideas to do that are great.
In our last minute, can I just, because it hasn't been said out loud at the August meeting, did we try to get these people refreshed for their terms?
Yeah.
Even if we're not appointing new, could we just like?
And that, if you watched it, that was a decision that was,
No, I know.
that decision
Yeah.
was not like oh yeah, let's do that. It was kind of confusing, like what, and it was because you guys had somebody.
Right.
And so I will uplift that, and I will uplift that to council and make sure that we know we can't stop the work and then go.
And I just think, speaking to, I know a couple council meetings ago, varsity people going up this board at one time. That's not it, because Lori was gonna nominate someone, and Jonathan was gonna nominate someone that day. Just not somebody rolling off in time. But again, she doesn't understand the workings. 2022, a lot of you all came on at the same time. It's been 2 years, like you said, life changes for people. So now people are all rolling off at the same time. I think she needs to understand, the rest of the council needs to understand that as far as how this board was formed, how all these people came on at the time, and how they're all moving on. as far as staff, it's the nominations. I have people emailing me all the time, want to be on the board. I have 3 people right now waiting. It's a lot of time, I'm like, not accepting nomination right now.
Yeah, that decision was not something that was spoken about beforehand, and it was just kind of just made from the go. We are, so those things are gonna happen, but now with these, with your experience, with exactly what you guys are saying, uplifting that, I hope in August we can just change that and say, look, we'll fix as we go, we'll build this plane as we fly it, and I feel, to your point, it has been stopped, and so that's gonna cause frustration all around, so that's something I could definitely uplift. And see if we can stop the pause and go back so we can get the work done that we were asking is amazing things. 6:30, I don't know.
Thank you, Dale and Nadia, for your steadfast work on this board as it's changed as well. And anybody, including Anthony, who is rolling off and out of purgatory, invaluable insight, experience, refreshing honesty, guidance, is something that you've given to this board literally from day one. So thank you for all of that.
So my friend.
So be it.
Maybe we'll have a reunion or something.
I am smart. I preach to the capacity. Just have one more term, which I'll be honest, I was going to serve 1 year, so we could get my code and I was gonna. Thank you.
Well, so they asked you, so when,
So thinking of